the desert of the real.
Welcome to the Desert of the Real. I'm your host, Ryan Hudson, and joined with me is your other host,
Jason Dietz.
The Desert of the Real is not only a reference to a philosopher, but it's also a movie podcast, where I force my co-host Jason to watch big blockbuster movies he's refused to watch because he didn't think they were worth his time. We're currently going through the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and today is a special Halloween spooky episode. Due to some scheduling conflicts, it was supposed to be Wakanda Forever, but we are going to be covering Werewolf by Night today, a little bit outside of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but still part of the Cinematic Universe in a special way.
Yes.
And next week will be Wakanda Forever.
Yes.
We are two high school teachers. We teach English, film, philosophy, and creativity classes, and we have graduate degrees and attempt to use our academic training to dig deeply into movies and help you to dig deeply into movies. We explore the creativity, philosophy, and ethics in film studies in our films and push you, the listener, to think critically about your entertainment.
It is true.
It is true.
We definitely do that. We want you to stop just passively receiving and start thinking and actively choosing. So,
like I said, today we're going to talk about Werewolf by Night, a TV movie, more like Disney Plus movie, that's like an hour long, not even an hour long, that came out in 2022. And then a couple years later,
this is a couple years later.
Well, then like last year, then the color version came out, because it's a black and white movie.
Yeah.
Came out. Okay, let me just give you some background. For reference, this is Wikipedia, but you know.
You do a good job citing your sources.
The Marvel comic character Werewolf by Night was planned to be a feature film by May 2001 to be licensed from Marvel Studios and distributed to Dimension Films, with the story developed by Marvel Studios. Anyway, more people piling on, attaching their names to this thing. 2004, the project was advertised at the American film market for distribution. And by November, Crystal Sky was preparing to shoot the film in the United Kingdom over the next 6 months. The next November, Crystal Sky was planning to announce a director and cast shortly and start filming in 2006. But this did not materialize. Marvel Studios had intended to use the character in a Marvel Cinematic Universe project as early as February 2019. When Kevin Smith was informed that he could not feature Werewolf by Night in his then-planned Marvel television animated Howard the Duck series due to Marvel Studios' own plans. I forgot. Kevin Smith was going to make a Marvel or Howard the Duck series. He's like appeared in a couple of these movies.
Never need to happen.
Howard the Duck, in some ways, one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But in other ways, at least it's doing something, I guess. We have duck costumes.
Taking up an hour.
George Lucas attached.
Which is super surprising.
Super surprising. Not great, but also arguably in the realm is maybe you should just experience this monstrosity.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean? Anyway, okay, so Kevin Smith was going to have the character in his show. Didn't happen. And then MODOK, which did happen. Did you know that this existed? It's on Hulu. I've not watched it. There's a stop motion comedy series of MODOK, which is he's like all face. His whole body's one big face, and he's got human arms and legs that stick out of his head, and he floats around in this little chair.
Okay.
He's like a classic Marvel character, even if you don't know anything about him. Like, yeah,
heard of him.
I know there was the guy that's the face. Anyway, that show exists, and anyway, they were going to include this character. They couldn't because it's gonna be a movie. Blah blah blah. It trickled down to become what it is today. Yeah, and Man-Thing was going to be used in a couple things, but like, no, we're going to use it later. By August 2021, Marvel Studios was developing a Halloween-themed television special for Disney Plus that was reportedly centered on Werewolf by Night. It became a special. The point is, it had a long legacy of since 2001. Let's use this obscure Marvel thing
to do something.
To do things. I mean,
it had various attempts and.
Because, like, did you know this? Men in Black is a Marvel thing.
I did not know.
A very small, obscure thing of like these agents and aliens. But technically, it came from Marvel and became its own franchise. So I think to some degree, it's like, what's something little we can take and make big? I wouldn't be surprised if that was the original idea.
Of this?
Yeah.
Oh. Cool.
Man-Thing and Swamp Thing from DC, kind of like the same thing. I don't know a lot. I think Man-Thing doesn't talk. Swamp Thing does.
Man-Thing has awesome powers.
He can melt people's faces by grabbing
other parts of their body.
I just love, it's one of my favorite things. At the end, he's with the werewolf character. I gotta look up.
Jack Russell.
Yeah. And it's like, want to get some sushi? yeah, I love that.
Well, but it's just like the Ewoks or, some other cute thing.
We're actually going to talk about monsters in movies.
Yes, we are today. So, I don't, for this movie, if you are not a fan of, classic horror, I think that this movie would fit in a Howard the Duck kind of situation. You'd be watching this and you'd be like, wow, this is terrible. Like, the effects are, like the scene where the dead guy's animatronically talking or whatever.
Yeah, okay.
That's super cool in a classic movie sense, but for a modern audience that had never experienced that in the 70s or earlier, it would be super hokey, I think.
Okay, here's the word for it. Because as opposed to the Howard the Duck movies where it's so bad it's good type of thing, I don't think this follows up, but this movie is campy.
Yes,
it has camp.
Right.
And in case you're forgetting or you're not unfamiliar with what this means, I Googled to find a proper sounding definition, and it says a film is considered amusing or appealing due to its exaggerated, artificial, or theatrical style and sensibility. Mm-hmm. So it's like over the top.
Yeah,
it's campy. I mean, I will say this is campy.
I would say it's more of like an homage.
It is.
So homage it up.
It's homage to the movies from the 30s, 40s, 50s. You know what? I haven't seen a lot of these.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean?
So how did you like this then? That's interesting.
Because, okay, here's the thing. I feel like movies today aren't in the DNA of culture like they used to be historically.
Right. I agree.
Even without seeing Frankenstein, I've seen Young Frankenstein because that's a comedy movie my dad grew up watching. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I haven't seen Creature of the Black Lagoon, Invisible Man. I haven't seen what are some other classic ones?
The Mummy,
Dracula. But I've seen various remakes of The Mummy and Dracula, and it's I've seen Three Stooges meeting some of these people.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're just, especially the Universal monster movies, they're on our cereal boxes. They're on our commercials. They're in classic Halloween affair. There are now Hotel Transylvanias.
So do you think that is unique to horror? Because for example, anyone probably that I walked up to and I said, who's Mike Myers? Oh. They would know.
Yeah.
Even if they'd never seen Halloween.
Right.
Or they know who Freddy Krueger is, even though they'd never seen it. So do you think that phenomena is specific to horror movies?
That's a good question.
Or another way to ask it, can you think of other movies that are inside of us without ever having seen them?
Maybe like science fiction-y movies, like
E.T.?
I was thinking even more like the aesthetic of 50s science fiction. You know what I mean? Maybe you haven't seen what's the one?
Creature from Outer Space.
Stuff like that.
It Came from Beyond.
Yeah, there's like one I watched.
Plan 9 from Outer Space.
I can't even think of it, but like maybe science fiction kind of exists in how we understand it.
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
That's
then
really
again,
cool
we
thing
also
come up
see
with.
movies even today, like where they're watching like a character's watching, like let's say for example, specifically the Iron Giant, which is animated, but like in the movie he's watching a 1950s-esque film, and we understand the vibe even without seeing it to some degree.
Okay.
And like another, I was kind of thinking, I think Simpsons, this whole series that existed before the internet would always reference movies all the time. And so it's like, oh, this movie was big because there's a joke about it here in Simpsons or in other shows. Now with the internet, I think references aren't prevalent, or it's like, oh, this movie made a lot of money, but does it exist beyond seeing it in the theaters that one time? You know what I mean? I think a lot of old horror icons just exist without having seen.
Yeah. So I think maybe this is a phenomenon unique to horror then.
Because like even without seeing the Bride of Frankenstein in Werewolf by Night, I was aware that the woman had the white streak. Yeah. That's Bride of Frankenstein.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. So that's interesting. So we could spend some time on that. Why is it horror that is in us? Maybe is there something inherently...
I honestly think, I think it is connected to this time. We'd have to talk to teenagers or something about it. But growing up before the internet and just, I don't know, you didn't have Disney Plus. You had your VHSs that you already owned.
Yeah.
Or just stuff became ingrained in a different way. You know what I mean?
So maybe this coming up generation doesn't have Frankenstein in them.
Yeah.
I don't know. That'd be an interesting thing to find out.
But they keep remaking it. There is a werewolf movie of Wolfman coming out next year. There's a Creature of the Black Lagoon movie coming out next year.
Right.
I mean, a lot of these...
there's something sticky about these characters in our...
I guess, let's just jump into the big question. Why do we like monster movies? As in... people, this is like
the monster subgenre of horror, or
like Guillermo del Toro. He made his Academy Award-winning Best Picture movie, The Shape of Water, about this woman falling in love with the fish man. He's talked about like there's something about monster movies. It's an homage and a love letter to these old monster movies. Right. There's something that draws us in. Why do you think we like monsters? Like,
well,
or I hear you talk about The Other and stuff. You know,
right. So the initial response is most people that aren't critical about who they are feel monstrous. I think when we compare our weaknesses to the best in other people, we become monstrous.
Yeah.
And so these classic monster movies, I think we recognize ourselves in them. And each one of the 5 classic monsters gets at something different inside of us. So, like, for example, Frankenstein's monster, we feel like that. We feel like parts of us, like we're just this kind of hodgepodge of, all these different people's expectations of us. And we don't, unless we, have gotten to know ourselves, we don't feel good in our skins. We feel like everyone's going to know I'm not actually that good or this smart, or I'm not this person or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, we could go through them. Like Creature from the Black Lagoon is us in a different way if we're not critical. We all feel like we are emerging from this place that other people don't. Like, we know ourselves, we know our history, we know all the gunk and the gross and the whatever, and we desperately hope that other people don't see it, or other people can see past it. And we don't realize that we can't see it. No one else sees it, but we know it. And so we feel like the creature from the Black Lagoon, like tainted. And so the mummy is this like ancient, I don't remember if he's a pharaoh or a priest, but is reawakened by someone violating a taboo or a curse.
Yeah.
And so again, we have that in us. We have parts of us that we feel like we've locked away, that needs to be there or whatever, and then someone like breaks the seal, and that can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing, but I feel like we recognize this emergence of this locked away thing in us sometimes, and we're afraid of it. We're afraid of what are people going to think when this thing that I've locked away comes out.
Yeah. See, that's why like there's a lot of movies about someone not fitting in.
Right.
I think sometimes there's a tendency for some people to think, oh, that movie's made for this specific subgroup. But like, no, every single person feels like an outsider to some degree.
Right.
Even if you're like the successful star quarterback or something, you know?
It's true, because I just got done with a Understand Yourself paper.
Yeah.
And I think everyone would be shocked to know that, you know, that guy or that girl that we think of as got all their crap together, they don't think they got all their crap together.
Yeah.
And so one of the like things that I take away from, especially from classic horror movies, is that idea that like all of us at some level feel like we're flawed. We feel like we're broken. We feel like we have, you know, weaknesses. And that especially in Western, United States society, that's not okay for us. Like, it's not, you know, quote unquote socially acceptable to have weaknesses or to display weaknesses or to not work on our exterior, you know, to not, you know, have makeup or whatever. We can't ever in Western society just be us.
Yeah.
And so I think we recognize in these classic movie monsters like some piece of that, and we're like, we want that. Like, we want to be the Frankenstein monster, like, that can just go out with all his flaws. We want to be that. But especially, again, in Western society, we can't unless we break rules and force ourselves to be uncomfortable. Like, it's uncomfortable to be Frankenstein in a society that reveres, I don't remember the woman's name that Frankenstein falls in love with, but reveres that. It's uncomfortable to be Frankenstein, but you know, we all are. So anyhow, that's a long response, but I feel like that's why they stick, because we recognize parts of ourselves and we have empathy for these monsters that aren't really monsters. They're us. So I guess.
I like that. I think that's really insightful, Dr. Dietz.
Maybe.
I guess with Werewolf by Night, I don't know if there's a whole lot to say. I love its vibe. I love its look.
Yeah.
The black and white version is the way to watch it. Because, you know, black and white, it's... I get students every year who don't like movies just because they're black and white. You know what I mean?
Which is bizarre to me. But
just the shading and coloring is way different, and I think the violence is a lot of fun because it's kind of like, wow, this is kind of gruesome for a Marvel
PG-13 Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first one where, you know, I think where we see blood splattering.
Blood splatters on the camera and just sticks around.
Crazy.
There's in the TV show Daredevil, which is kind of in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's that Netflix series before they moved over to Disney. There's one fight in season 1. It's like a one take where he's just beating up all these guys in the hall, and the camera goes and then flips around. He just fights like 15 people in a seeming one take. It's not like a true one take, but I feel like a lot of movies, it's kind of just like, oh, we got to recapture that cool fight scene. And that's kind of like in this movie, there's that one take with the blood and people getting killed. Like, we just got to show all these people going down. And I mean, it's cool, but at the same time, is it just redoing the Daredevil fight?
Maybe.
Or arguably, is it just all remakes of the Fight from Old Boy, the Korean movie.
Which is not a movie I would recommend.
It's a movie I'd recommend.
It's not right.
It's not.
It's not right.
It's not right, but watch the Korean version and not the American version.
Watch none of the versions unless you have VidAngel.
Sure.
It is not right.
It's not. That's why
I watched it on VidAngel and I was like, wow, that is not right. Anyhow, so
this movie directed, it's a guy I really like, Michael Giacchino. This guy's a film composer. He's composed on IMDb over 170 different things. Lightyear, Jurassic World, The Batman. He did Jojo Rabbit, Spider-Man Far From Home. He's the guy. And I was telling you this earlier, I knew he was the guy way back when he was doing Lost. Like, some of the music in Lost is so beautiful. Like, he did the music and directed it. That's cool. I mean, I don't know how many people make that jump from composer to director. And
not many, probably.
Yeah.
So I will say, if given that, like, my family and I have filmed a number of movies, and what we have found is the easiest movies to film are movies like this, where it's nominally a horror movie, but it's so over the top that it's not anymore.
Right.
And so, if given that, this is a good genre of movie to cut your teeth on if you're like starting, because you don't have to hit the nail on the head. You can be as absurd looking and crazy looking and campy as you want in this genre. And so it doesn't require a whole lot of directorial sense of like the drama and whatever, because it's so over the top.
Yeah. You
can just lump whatever's wrong with it into, oh, I was just being over the top. So I don't think this is a great movie. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it's a great homage, like, to what we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you have a favorite werewolf transformation from a movie?
Like, an American werewolf in London. I'm sure anyone that's ever asked that question gives that response. Like, it's just an amazing piece of cinematography.
It's hard not to think of an American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
Maybe we could note, I don't know, Harry Potter 3?
Never seen it.
Oh. Do we need to?
How is that a surprise to you?
Do we need to watch the Harry Potter
Does it
movies?
have a number after it? I've probably not seen it.
Hey, maybe that's a series coming up.
Oh my goodness.
Other werewolf movies I think of note. I got a good one, the Michael Jackson Thriller music video.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say the Michael J. Fox Teen Wolf.
Teen Wolf!
Which is not that great.
I honestly haven't even seen it.
Really? Jack Nicholson's transformation in Wolf is pretty good.
Oh, yeah?
We don't actually do we make monster movies anymore?
Kinda, like I said.
Like, all of our monsters are psychopaths now.
Yeah, but there was like an Invisible Man movie not too long ago.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty good.
Then they attempted to make the Dark universe. Remember that? We talked about that.
Right, so we don't like them anymore.
I guess not.
We want our monsters to be classic. That's interesting.
Did you, what was I going to say?
I'm trying to remember the last monster movie I watched. Other than, like, a serial killer. Anyhow.
Ready for some questions about the horror genre?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, what's the first horror movie you ever watched? Or you remember watching?
It wasn't a movie, but I remember sneaking behind my parents' couch while they were watching The Incredible Hulk. Like the Lou Ferrigno.
Oh, yeah.
And watching him transform, he was in my nightmares for years. Just he'd show up in various forms in my nightmares. So I would say that was my first experience with horror.
Nice. I was scared of Jumanji growing up. But I think the first proper horror movie I watched as a scary movie was The Poltergeist.
I do know which one. My first proper movie was The Watcher in the Woods, which scared the crap
and that's
out
like
of
a
me.
Disney movie.
Yes,
and
it is so scary.
I considered buying that because it's not on Disney Plus and probably never will
so
be.
dang scary. Yeah, that one. That was my first one.
What do you think makes a horror movie truly terrifying?
I think it's different for different people. The horror movie that gets at like your deepest fears is the most terrifying. In my case, the serial killer genre to me is the most terrifying, but specifically when they go after families.
Yeah.
So like Jason and Mike Myers and Freddy Krueger, I don't think they're scary at all.
Yeah.
But when there was another one called The Strangers.
Yeah.
The Strangers.
I haven't seen the movie, but the one image, it's like the image of the movie is just the guy kind of in the background.
Yep.
And the mom is unaware.
Yeah. So The Strangers was like, I watched it once and I probably won't ever watch it again. Because it's just that.
Yeah.
Like it gets that part of me. Or like Sinister. Is super scary because it's going after a family. The demon or whatever is getting kids to kill the rest of his family.
Oh wow!
Over and over, like, and that's terrifying to
Yeah.
me as a father of a number of children. That's scary. So there you go.
I was like, it's whenever I watch a scary movie, even if I know it's it's not real, it's a movie. It's always like it leaves you on edge, kinda.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom now, or
With all the lights on down the hall.
yeah. Or it's like, oh, I gotta. What usually happens is I have to go to my kids' room in the middle of the night. It's like I have to walk all the way.
Whatever those are, but I think it's different for everyone.
I think a few things that I find unnerving on film is when like. You can't control the camera, but it feels like you just are subjected to the camera's will. Like, I don't want to look over there, camera. Don't go over there.
Yeah.
I think seeing open spaces, like if you watch a movie and then like the camera just like a room, but you see into the next room or the next room, it's like, wow, I don't know why, but it just feels like anything could be.
Yeah, it could be hiding behind that wall or the. Yeah.
I think Insidious kind of plays with that idea. But anyway.
So, like that, The Taking of Deborah Logan.
Yeah.
Which I think is terrifying. Apparently, other people don't. That's why. Because this is a grandmother in her space. She's got Alzheimer's and so, like, that's a family being torn apart by a disease that tears people apart.
Right.
But there's this whole subtext of what if it's not just that?
Yeah.
And I thought it was terrifying because everyone in this world is eventually going to have their parents be old. And they will probably have them be old with some sort of disability or something. And The Taking of Deborah Logan forces us to like kind of distance ourselves from these people that we love deeply. So yeah, I don't know. That's like the fourth time I've answered your question, but I keep thinking about it, and it's just anything that makes us feel uncomfortable with people that we're supposed to love, or that we do love. I think that's the worst horror for me.
Do you have a favorite horror movie, monster or villain? Speaking of monsters.
Jigsaw.
Oh, whoa.
Is my favorite.
You just watched those not too long ago for the first time.
Yeah, because like Jigsaw is the philosophical serial killer. Like he's not just killing people to kill people. In fact, he doesn't even want people to die. What he wants is for them to wake up and start actually living their lives. And he creates these elaborate traps and games and systems to wake them up.
Yeah.
And if they are unwilling to wake up, then they die. But he's not the one that's actually, I mean, I guess we're splitting hairs, but he's not the one that kills them. They kill themselves because they're unwilling to wake up to slough off parts of themselves that are holding them back or that are doing them damage. They're not willing to give it up.
Yeah.
And so they die.
Nice.
So Jigsaw's my favorite. He's not just this random Mike Myers guy going around killing random people for no reason at all.
Yeah. I got an out-of-pocket one. Gremlins. I love the Gremlins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The scary Ewoks.
Kinda, yeah. I love Gremlins too.
I still haven't seen it.
Oh, you gotta watch it.
It has a number in the title.
Yeah, no, it's Gremlins, a new batch. There's no number.
Oh.
Just kidding.
That makes it better.
It's about the film industry and how... what's the part? There's one gremlin that can talk in a British accent. He's on an interview. He's like, we want what anyone wants, civilization. And he's like, take this gremlin for a chance. And he pulls out a gun from nowhere and shoots this other gremlin. Now, was that very civilized? Stuff. Good movie.
I'll have to watch it.
What's your take on the use of practical effects versus CGI in horror? Do you have a thought on that?
I don't know. Like, I think CGI allows us to do things that we couldn't do otherwise in movies, specifically, usually science fiction movies. But I think if we can do it and have it look good practically, we should do it and have it look good practically.
I agree. Did you ever see... Okay, The Thing is a classic. Like, it's like the poster child for practical monster effects.
Right.
It was a surprise prequel, I believe, called The Thing, like same title. The prequel has all these behind the scenes of using these puppets and practical monsters. The footage of these puppets is incredible. Then they didn't use them.
That's dumb.
In the movie. It's all CGI and didn't age well. How do you think horror movies have evolved over the years? You kind of talked about that.
Yeah.
And there are movies that kind of address it, like Scream is the famous one where kind of highlights the tropes and stuff.
Well, I feel like horror movies are the front runner genre. Like things that we can't or don't want to deal with as a society show up in horror. And then horror helps us work through them, and then those things pass into, other genres.
Yeah.
And so we can look to horror and what's being made right now as a touchstone for what are we as a society not dealing with yet? What in real life is scary to us?
Yeah.
And so, like in the 1980s, we have all of the classic slasher people. Like, that's the birth of Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger and Mike Myers. And at the time, that's right after, like, the term or the concept or the idea of a serial killer was just coming to the fore. Like, Ed Gein was a little earlier, but this is the time of Ted Bundy. And Ted Bundy is terrifying to us because he's a good-looking guy. He's the guy next door, the guy that you inherently trust. And like, how do we deal with the fact that this guy raped and killed dozens and dozens of young women? Well, we as a society can't deal with that right now, and so we push it into horror. And so that's why we have Jason, that's why we have Freddy, because they're trying to help us deal with this. So the evolution of horror, I think, is the evolution of our societal concerns, the things that we can't deal with yet. So in the 50s, there are tons and tons of nuclear creating monster stuff.
And kind
because
of
in the
xenophobia too.
Right, because in the 50s we can't deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like what do we don't know what is going to happen when some bomb goes off. Yeah, maybe it's going to be giant ants, maybe it's going to be a giant crab, maybe it's going to be we all go blind and we have these killer plants running around. We don't know, and we can't deal with it.
A modern example I saw not too long ago, Talk to Me. Did you see that one yet?
I love Talk to Me. Yeah.
Talk to Me. Grab the hand, talk to a ghost. But it's also about social media. Mm-hmm. If you're playing along at Desert of the Real Bingo, we always bring up social media.
I didn't this time.
So I know, but
I don't know if that counts as bingo.
It comes up all the time.
So horror is just this timeline of we need help dealing with this. We can't, so we push it into horror.
I just watched a movie. It's similar because it just came out. It's also PG-13. It's got some truly horrifying images because it's called I Saw the TV Glow. It's like these characters obsessed with a TV show from their childhood, and then it's also a very specific metaphor once you figure it out. But and it's mostly not scary, but a couple of things I'm like, wow, that's like the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in my life. One final question.
Sure.
What would your movie recommendation be for Halloween night?
This year?
Yeah. All right, I got a good one for you. In case you haven't already seen it. It's not a movie. It's a mini series, but if you watch it together, it's movie length. Over the Garden Wall.
What's that?
It's a cartoon that was on Cartoon Network with Elijah Wood as voicing the main guy. This boy and his brother and a frog are in the land of the unknown, and they're trying to get back home. And it's just all fall aesthetic. It's like leaves are falling. There's a bunch of creatures. It's kind of scary. Like, I wouldn't show my toddler this. I can't wait to watch it with her because there's some kind of creepy things, and it's super funny, but also just so well done. It's like the music, the artwork. It's like you wish you could kind of live in this place, even though it's kind of spooky. Anyway, Over the Garden Wall. If you're already a fan of it, you understand. But it's I like to watch it every year.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I used to watch Kubrick's The Shining every year.
Nice.
I don't know. There's so many great. So if you haven't seen Paranormal Activity, I would recommend that, especially if you have VidAngel, because literally the only reason that movie is rated R is because of the language. Mm-hmm. But like the first time I watched that, I thought it was the scariest thing I'd ever seen. Like there's a whole set of like movies from that era, like what is that, early 2000s?
Yeah, the aughts.
Like the Blair Witch Project, if you haven't seen
Blair
that.
Blair Witch is it's like in its own category of every movie ever. It tricked so many people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It didn't invent the
found
footage, but it like came swinging, and you can never trick an audience like that ever again.
Probably not.
So
I guess found footage is my favorite subgenre, actually.
Nice.
Because a lot of these are like the Cloverfield. I really like a lot. I don't know that it's actually a horror movie, but it's really cool. There's a movie I haven't seen the original of, which is called REC, REC, like record. The remake, American remake is called Quarantine. Mm-hmm. Terrifying movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's so many. So, if you haven't seen the classic movies from the aughts, which most of our listening audience, I think that's about when you were born, those I would recommend, especially if you have VidAngel.
Nice.
Although, I don't know that Blair Witch really has...
It's just language.
Yeah, again. I think both of those are just language. So, enjoy movies your way, or VidAngel would make those a PG, but they're terrifying.
Yeah.
I love them. So, there you go.
Nice. We haven't really talked a lot about Werewolf by Night, but it's also just kind of...
We haven't.
It's just what it is.
Like, if you love classic horror, you will love it.
Yeah, and it's almost like this... The things that are deep here are kind of the same things in, like, other werewolf movies and monster movies.
Right.
Love the monster. Like, they look different.
Right.
But Ted is adorable. He's the best.
Just this loving little
He's
pile of spaghetti that's green or something. I do think this is kind of a cool ethical movie because we see a lot of different approaches to the, like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, just to run through a couple of them. We have a loyalist ethics here. So once Ella, what's her name?
I forget.
The female monster hunter creates this bond with Jack. They're loyal to each other.
Yeah.
They stick together.
She's like, if you betray me, I'll kill you, but...
Right.
But then... And then it's like, I need to know your scent. He's like sniffing her hair. What
right.
are you doing? if I remember your smell, maybe I won't kill you.
Right. Which ends up happening.
Yeah.
But so we've got that. And they're the ones that end up winning. Mm-hmm. So this movie's ethical broadcast is loyalist ethics trumps the others. Which,
working as a team.
Right. Or being true to the people that you have connections with. But we also have pretty heavy prudent ethics, like what's going to be best for me.
Yeah.
And so the reason why everyone else loses is because they're focused on prudent ethics.
Yeah.
And the loyalists come out winning. And then there's a lot of situational ethics, just like what's right in this situation, because these are monster hunters. Mm-hmm. They're not monster hunters. But in this situation, with a like a big enough prize, who they are goes out the window.
Yeah.
For a lot of them, and it's interesting to watch. Like when we allow our core ethics to disintegrate, like everything
just
else,
like Man Thing will do to you.
Right. Everything else disintegrates with it,
yeah.
Which I think is really interesting.
Well, I just like how after the werewolf kills everyone, Man Thing kills the one woman. Then he's like, yeah, he went that way.
And then we have a lot of Darwinian ethics in this. If I win, whatever it was that I did to win was right.
Yeah.
And so we've got like arms getting chopped off and people stealing people's weaponry and the werewolf like just decimating everyone, whether they did something to him or not. But the end result ethically of this movie, like I already said, is the most important way to decide what's right and wrong is who have you declared your loyalty to. And in the end, like everyone's happy. They go get sushi and
yeah. Like this is a nice 55-minute thing. We don't have a lot of time for like deep characterization and stuff. But I wish we got more of these. I don't know why this is a one and done. I would definitely
watch more of these.
Why don't we there's so many comics. Let's have more specials.
Let's have some more horror specials.
Or let's just have all the movies and everything. Like, remember when they used to be connected and building towards something we can see, and now it's just willy-nilly?
Because now they're just throwing out movies.
Now it'll feel that way for the rest of the thing. Can we do some a little bit of mailbox right here?
Sure.
The podcast, Tune My Heart podcast, talking about Thor: Love and Thunder. Said, I know a lot of people dislike it, and I understand why, but at the time we saw it, hubby and I really needed to just laugh and relax.
That's
so
what
we
I'm talking
quite
about.
Enjoyed it. Thank you, Tune My Heart podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
So anyway, but the other big thing is I asked about Beatles versus Pink Floyd, and I got one response.
Okay.
And you'll like it. This is what they say.
Okay.
I like them both for different reasons, but Pink Floyd gets the trophy mostly for this reason. A lot of bands can write songs, but Pink Floyd wrote albums.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And that's where I struggle with Pink Floyd. Because...
You want 2.5-minute songs.
No, I'm like... It's kind of like if you listen to a musical without knowing the story, you're like, I'm missing stuff here. There's whatever happens in between
Then
the
it's
songs.
not a good musical.
Okay, but Pink Floyd, I'm like, you're like, this is the story behind it, and it's clear. I'm like, is it clear? I don't know how these are connected.
At this point, I can no longer discern that because I've listened to all of those albums so many times.
Yeah.
They're a part of me. And I'll look at
You know what a subgenre I find kind of unsettling? Analog horror. You know what I mean? Like, they have the aesthetic of VHS or static-y things. But it's just, there's something unnerving, maybe with the audio, how characters sound, how, like, it just, footage doesn't look crystal clear sometimes.
Oh, have you seen Sinister?
Mm-mm. So that's probably, that's analog horror.
Well, like the films that they watch are, and yeah, definitely that's a part of what makes them horrific.
And if I Google it, Skinamarink comes up. Ring, Lake Mungo. Have you seen Lake Mungo? Lake Mungo, I don't even know what it's about, but it's always on scary movie lists. Anyway. That's also kind of, maybe that's why one thing really affected me from I saw the TV Glow, because it's like
analog
a little bit like,
well, like then you're talking about like Paranormal Activity. That's analog.
There's a bunch of like YouTube, like not even movies, but YouTube horror stuff related to analog. And I've seen stuff like that. There's like this one video where the GPS is taking you somewhere, and it's just footage of someone driving. There's no talking, and then the footage, like the GPS is like, keep going down this road, and it's like down like it keeps getting more and more remote, and it's like, get out of the car, like stuff like that. And it's just,
it sounds like a Black Mirror episode,
kind of like that. I know. Anyway, this has been our Halloween special a couple weeks early.
Yeah. So one other thing, like I feel like horror is a really important genre for all the reasons we've talked about, but I also feel like it helps us understand like the true power of love. And I don't want to say that in a love thing, but if you watch horror over and over and over, the ultimate message of that movie is you can overcome anything with this bond, this love bond that you have with whoever it is that supports you. And I think that's super important, especially for like the upcoming generation that is the most depressed generation in the history of the world.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to take that out of horror, because crap happens. Like if we want to look at our lives as a horror movie, like horror, scary stuff's happening all the time.
Yeah.
But the ultimate message of horror movie is be loyal, hang with the people.
Yeah, don't split up.
Right, don't split up. Right. Like that's a trope, but like it ties directly to what we're talking about here. So when horrific things happen in your life, the over and over message of horror movies is stay with the people that you love and who love you, and you'll win.
Yeah.
You may not win the way that you want to win, but stay with them and you'll come out on top.
Yeah.
Like you can pretty much pick any horror movie and you can see that. The only exceptions are recently we've started to have movies like Sinister where there isn't a come out on top at the end.
I think that might be a trend. It's like you were talking about this with the where are we as a society? Like maybe sometimes it feels hopeless. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly right. And so movies like Sinister, that's something that we're struggling with. If we let go of these bonds, what happens?
Yeah.
And Sinister gives us a pretty clear, this is what happens when you let go of the bonds of, in Sinister's case, of the familial love.
Yeah.
crap happens.
Yeah.
So
hey, I like a final note, like hold to the people you love.
yeah.
Can I just okay? Sorry, I watched this video on YouTube about drugs. Anyway, it was it was literally like, here are the things that make you feel good in your brain, or like that why people are addicted to drugs. Like this drug fills this cup, and it makes you feel good, but then you don't feel the other things, you know?
Right.
Or this drug makes you feel good in this other way, and so. None of it's good. Like, it'll make you feel good, but over a time and your ability to feel things and feel that good is going to diminish and not good. The point of the video was ultimately like, what is best for you? Not drugs, but studies have shown spending time with loved ones, scheduling time with friends is going to give you the same, if not better, reactions mentally. Like scientifically, the things in your brain will light up. Like having conversations with people you love, that part gets filled up. Feeling wanted, that part fills. You know, like it was spending time with people. Yeah, like drugs are bad. Don't do drugs. True, but literally,
love fills all of our slots. And I think, especially if we continue trending in horror towards this, you know, loss of people that we love or giving up, I think that's something that we're dealing with, and we need to stop. We need to stop isolating ourselves. Like, okay, here it comes. Social media is isolating us. It's causing us to feel like the Frankenstein, to feel like the mummy, to feel like the the creature from the Black Lagoon. And also to feel the way they felt about themselves, like isolated and lonely. We need to stop it. We need to get off of our social media and get with the people that we love, because ultimately that's what's going to get us through the horror. Yeah. That's what's going to get us through our difficult times. It's not social media.
And make you feel better.
Right. Cool. Well, this has been kind of a
hodgepodge,
all over the place hodgepodge episode.
Horror genre, monster talk.
Yeah. Anti-social media rhetoric.
Every episode is anti-social media. Hey, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
We love you.
We do love you.
Think critically.
Please. And just, go give someone a hug that you love.
There you go.
Or, give them a gift, or give them words of affirmation, or whatever it is that you express and that they feel love. Go do that.
All right. You're the best.
Yep.
Love you. Bye.